Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for hitting that play button for another episode of the Heady Coleman Podcast, where I sit down with fabulous people to have go-in conversations. Go-in is being consistent and doing the right things that allow for you to achieve the wins that you have defined for your life so that you can live out your greatest story. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I've had him before. Two, three times? How many times have you been on my podcast?
I think twice.
Twice?
Yeah.
Twice?
I think twice.
Y'all hear the voice. You know the voice. That is the voice behind This Is Oklahoma. His name is Mike Hearne. Mike, how are you living?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Thanks for having me. Beautiful new setup you have.
Thank you.
Last time we recorded, I think it was at the behind the store, right? The lovely ladies and gentlemen have the beautiful store there in town.
Downtown Guthrie.
And it was the time where they were recording the Reagan movie because we went over to your house and there was stuff everywhere outside of your house because they were filming outside the house.
Yes.
But yeah, that was probably over a year ago.
Yeah, a little over a year ago because was it during COVID?
I think so. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Good times.
Everybody was trying to connect in some way, and but man, so just kind of give us, let's say within a year, like what have you been up to? Kind of tell the people who may have not heard of you, tell them a little bit about what you do and where you're from and all that good stuff.
All right, yeah. So I'm originally from Wales in the UK. I came here in August 2011 to play college golf at Southern Nazarene University. I studied marketing at Southern Nazarene University down in Bethany. Graduated in 2015. Shortly after graduating, got into real estate, residential real estate, met my wife. Shortly after that, got married, stayed in the country. We're both kind of in the real estate industry still. And I was always on my phone, always kind of had a passion. I was always on social media. And it came a time where I was not very good at what people would call sales in the traditional sense, right? Making phone calls, knocking on doors, lead generation. So my real estate business wasn't doing very well. And I, watched a few Gary Vee videos like most people do, and saw this video and he's like, you should start a social media, I think his official words were, you should become the social media mayor of your town. And start a social media brand, and then after that, launch a podcast, and basically just that is a way to generate, leads and get out into the community. So I started This Is Oklahoma. People think that it's named after This Is Us, and I've never watched an episode of This Is Us, but my brother-in-law was watching it at the time, and I think that subconsciously that came in, and I was like, yeah, This Is Oklahoma, it's a great name, and it was available. So got the handles, did the podcast thing. I did the Instagram thing, I think, for 8 months before launching a podcast. And then the podcast was launched in May of 2018. And so I did one episode a week and then slowly went to 2. During COVID, I think I did 3 a week because it was easy. People were used to listening to Zoom calls. Yeah. So I did that. And then during COVID, I picked up the Oklahoma Hall of Fame as a sponsor, and they've been with me ever since. They've been great. And basically, the kind of general crux of it is that, I interview Oklahomans about their story. And if you have any relationship to Oklahoma, like I'm from Wales, so it doesn't matter. You don't have to be born and bred here, 6th generation, to be on the podcast, right? If you have a cool story, then I'm probably going to sit with you. But the good thing one of the things I did from day one was initially the plan was, to generate real estate clients and have a real estate advertisement on the podcast. And thankfully I had some realization very early on that it's not about me. It's not about my real estate business. It's about the guest. So I never put any real estate ads on it from day one. And, 4 years later now and 483 episodes, I think, are out.
Get out of here.
So we're almost at 500.
You started 2018. So we're talking 4 years.
May of 2018.
483.
Yeah. 483 as of today. So yeah, I do two a week. So it's 104 a year basically. And during 2020, I did 3 a week, which was 150 something. Oh my! So goodness. The math is like 2 a week basically. Yeah. But yeah, and then I've launched other podcasts off that because I came here to play golf, so I have a passion for golf. So I kind of have a golf podcast as well, which is just an excuse for me and my buddies to get on and talk about golf.
Because you're here. Did you mention that you're here because of golf, right?
Yeah. So I played golf. I still play golf a lot, and then I have a huge passion for cars. So I kind of have my car podcast as well to go and get out there and I'll always have my real estate license, but I mean, I found a passion for sitting with people and meeting and hearing their story and the great things that have come from those connections. Now, my real estate business has done okay. In the last year, it hasn't, because I've just fallen in love with podcasting and less in love with real estate. So, it's a lot easier, and there's a lot less people involved to deal with when you just sit and have a conversation and hear someone's, impactful story of how they've changed their life or somebody else's life or the life of the Oklahomans that live in the state. So it's been good. It's been really good. And just kind of hoping to grow and keep going. I got a couple more sponsors. The Chickasaw Nation jumped on board after I interviewed Governor Anatoby last year, or this year. So they jumped on board in September, and they've been great ever since. So we've just done a few podcasts with the Chickasaw country, the travel side of the nation, and they have some incredible people, places, small businesses around, that are all in the Chickasaw Nation. So they've been a great partner. And then shortly, kind of a short stint podcast sponsor I've had is the 988 Oklahoma mental health number, which has been good. Yeah, they've been on board basically for the last 4 months of the year. So September, October, November, December, and basically what is happening is they have passed a bill to change the number from that 1-800 giant long number to just call 988, which makes so much sense, right? It's such an easier number, and it's not just if there's a lot of other things and services available, and there's a call center in the state with everyone who is there to deal with you. So they've been great, and we've done 4 podcasts. Well, we're doing four podcasts with them, just to give more information out on the resources. Basically.
Will this be under This Is Oklahoma?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've done 2 with the director of, I believe, whoever's leading the Oklahoma mental health. Her name's Carrie Slatton Hodges, and she's, I think, the director. So we've done 2 with her, and then we have 2 more coming up. So it's been good. Been a lot of good fun. Met a lot of cool people. Met people I never thought I would sit across the table from.
Yeah.
And you just hear stories and you get inspired. So it's a lot of fun. I need to make it my full-time thing.
Well,
I need to make it pay like a full-time thing.
I think sometimes you end up in a place and people are like, man, he's an overnight success. But
no.
I think really what you learn is like people just been grinding for a long time behind the scenes, like you've been doing, and then at some point you've grown it to where it's like, I've been doing this for a long time. Is the reason now I'm able to do podcasting full time, and so. Wells versus the state, like, what's a couple of quick things like living in Wells versus the states? Like, what are some things that you can immediately come to mind that's different?
First thing I can think of is opportunity. Like, there's so much more opportunity here. There's so much more. The people, the willingness for people to help you as well, but not help you. I'm not saying the people in Wales will help you, but people here will help you a lot more in a let's grow your business, right? Let's financially get you to where you need to be. Whereas in the UK, it's like, they'll help you, but they just don't have the financial means to help you, or the connections to help you financially either. There's not really an entrepreneurial culture in the UK compared to out here. So, like the average income in the UK, which is sadly going down now because the exchange rate is terrible for the UK to the pound to the dollar. For us, going back dollar to pound, it's good right now. But 10 years ago it was like $2 to £1. So 10 years ago the average income was $60,000 a year, whereas now it's almost close to $35,000 a year because of that exchange rate has come down. So people just don't make that much money in the UK, and it's tough, and it's getting worse because of inflation. So I want to live here. I love living here. It's so much fun. I wouldn't be able to do what I do here back home and make the same amount of money. And play golf and drive anywhere I want to drive, right? Like it's so I do miss home, of course. Like I miss my friends, I miss the culture, I miss going to the pub, walking to the pub from my house and watching a football or rugby game. I don't get that here. But then there's so many other things that I just I miss. Every time I go home, I'm like, I realize every time that there's something in Oklahoma that I'm glad I have. right?
Yeah.
And then obviously the weather's terrible in Wales for the most part, you know, especially in the winter. So
Yeah. Do people ask you about doing this as Oklahoma and not being from here? Do
no,
people even ask you about that?
I thought I'd get asked that a lot more. People don't, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know if they like ask themselves and ask other people, why is this guy doing this? You know, like I need to ask everyone
Like
the whole
behind
thing.
the scenes?
Yeah, because I've never been asked like, you know, that question, so, which is a surprise because I thought people initially when I launched the podcast, and because when you launch an Instagram page first, nobody knows who you are.
Yeah.
Right? It's just this is just somebody behind this. It could be a guy, it could be a girl, it could be a team of people. But when you launch the podcast, they're like, oh, this guy's from Wales. He sounds funny. Like, you know, and I haven't. I thought, you know, one of the things with starting the podcast I was kind of insecure about was that exact thing.
Gotcha.
Right, I'm not from here, but yeah, I've been here 11 years now, and like home is here now.
You know, what comes to mind though too is I wonder, not being from here allows for you to do it the best, right? Because you are really in the learning mode about people who are from Oklahoma. Where somebody's from Oklahoma, there's already these preconceived thoughts that I already know everything about Oklahoma, which I do not know everything.
Right.
I'm from Oklahoma or the United States.
Yeah.
For example, like you're not even from the United States too.
Yeah.
So you are like all in on being able to ask the questions that probably the most curious people would ask.
Right.
But from not being from here.
Yeah.
Do you think that's been true for you? Or?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because I like I said, I come in with just a blank page, right? And like I know nothing about you, and I ask the obvious questions, you know, because people need to know. People, you know, it's like in school when you sit there and someone's like, I need to ask a question, I should ask a question, but I don't want to look like an idiot, right? Yeah. Everyone has that. Even in adult life, we don't really want to stick our hand up and ask questions, which is dumb in itself, I think. But yeah, I totally agree. I think it helped me. You know, it's helped me because I can always fall back on the excuse that, hey, I'm not from here, I don't know this. So please tell me, you know, and everyone else is like, yeah, I'm glad you asked that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I'm learning so much. I know nothing about, you know, Oklahoma history, and, you know, and I know more now. When I started, I didn't know anything, you know.
Now you're probably at the place that you know more than
people come to me now. People are like, so what about this? And you know, we're walking around. We're always like, you know, go out downtown, or I go somewhere and I meet people and I chat, and you know, someone's asked me, you know, how do you know that person? I'm like, oh well, they were on the podcast, and here's a little bit about them, and you know, it is interesting. It is fun because I get to tell people great things about the place that they live in, right? That they have no idea about, you know, a great place to go for food, or you know, whatever it is. Like, being of value is always fun to people. You know, to be of value to people is a fun thing, I think.
Yeah. You mentioned cars. What's been the funnest car that you've had the opportunity to drive?
Okay. So I worked for the Porsche dealership. Did some social media work for them for about 15 months. A little bit. And so I got to take Porsches 911s to car shows every month, and I got to drive some pretty epic, you know. To me, they're great. They have big wings and stuff, and the probably the pinnacle was driving one of the. It for people who know cars, it's a 911 GT3 RS, and has a big wing on the back. It was lime green, obnoxious looking thing. If you're not a car person, you saw it pull up, you'd think this guy's got a tiny winkle kind of thing. Like this guy's showing off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got to drive that, but the problem is now is I want one of those, right? And like this car's $280,000.
Oh my goodness! You were driving a $280,000 car.
That's slight. Yeah, I love it. I had it for 24 hours.
So, like, when you're driving a $280,000 car, does it feel that much different?
I have insurance, so it helped, right? I make sure like I had insurance, and that they wouldn't let me leave with it if I didn't have the insurance for that car. So that's a good thing. But yes, it's $280,000 because it's basically like a race car, effectively.
Gotcha.
For the road. Race car for the road is what they kind of call it, and it sounds great. You know, it just looks awesome. And the greatest things is, you know, I'm going down the turnpike and I'm just driving home, you know, doing 70 mile an hour down the turnpike, just passing Paycom, and this guy pulls up in the car next to me. Not a kid, the guy, old guy driving a truck, pulls up next to me, and he's just like thumbs up. And like he's got his phone out and he's videoing, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna give this guy something. So I like because it has an automatic, I stuck it into like this manual, pulled a few paddles, dropped it down a few gears so the engine starts loud. It has a button on it where you can open up the exhaust valves and makes it louder. So I dropped from 5th to 2nd and then just floored it, and I just take off. And then I, hit whatever I hit, slow down, because in a short period of time, a short span of driving down the highway, and I slow down, he catches up with me, and he looks over, and he's still videoing. And he's just like the happiest person ever. And I'm just like, if only you knew that this wasn't my car, right? But I'm like, that must be the feeling that every person who loves cars, that spends money to buy and drive these cars. We all had those moments as a kid.
Yeah.
Never leaves us. This guy's like probably 50, 60 years old, right? Yeah. And he's just like, he's going to go home and tell someone, look what I saw today.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, if only I could do that every day. Right? If only I could make kids smile. And I've had, kids lean out. Like, that's what it's about, isn't it? It's like having that kind of poster on the wall moment with whoever. Mm-hmm. And that was like, this is why we love cars, right? This is why we love kind of loud noises and flashy things, is because they just look cool, and it's painful now though, because I'm always like, I get in my car and I drive home and I'm like, I have a Ford Fusion, right? So, it's cost me right now in the used market, it might get over $10,000. I don't know. And I'm like, how do I get myself in that permanently?
Yeah.
And then I tell Taryn, my wife, and I'm like, what do you think about this car? And she's like, well, the wing's a bit obnoxious, and it was a lime green car. She's like, it looks toxic sludge green, I think is what she called it. She's like, how much is it? I'm like, it's $280,000. She goes, that's a lot more than our house. It's like $100,000 more than what we paid for the house. Yeah. It's like, what's the payment on that? So I did a quick Googling, did some math. I was like, well, with a $50,000 down payment, the payments come out monthly on a 60-month loan. It was like $4,000 a month, right? Which is nuts. It's way more than I would ever spend on a car.
My goodness.
But I'm now figuring out. Have you read Tim Ferriss's book? One of the 4-Hour Work Week?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So in that, he's like, figure out this is how much you've got to make every month. And he talks in that book about financing cars. I think it's an Aston Martin he's talking about in that book. So like, I have that idea of man math, right? And like, I've just got to make, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month. It doesn't matter if my monthly payment's $4,000. That's irrelevant on the car. I just need to make enough money to pay for my house and my car.
Yeah.
Whereas my wife and everyone else that's sensible is like, no, we need to savings, or we need a rainy day fund. And I'm like, no. We need, I have a down payment of, whatever it is, I could fully finance the whole thing, but so that's my man math. So I need to get somehow, Heady, I need to get back. And it might not be a $280,000 one. It might be a $200,000. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It's like that sensation of, driving that car and putting a smile on someone's face is just infectious.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. People pulling out phones for anything, that you're doing something.
If I ever get another one, like, and I drive one for the dealership, I will bring one to Guthrie and we'll have to go drive in it. Yeah.
Okay. So, what is the value of that car once you drive it off the lot?
Probably. I mean, well, it was used as well. They would say they're $280,000 used. They weren't brand new.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. And what's kind of mad, and people who know the car world a little bit, Porsche don't sell that many of their like high performance cars. So if you're on the list to buy one, that car retail is $180,000. So this guy has bought that car for $180,000, or girl or whoever has bought it because they're on the list. They might have also gone and bought a Porsche SUV. Like the dealers, they're friendly with the dealership, right? Loyal to the dealership. They go buy that car for $180,000. As soon as they drive it off the lot, that car to them is worth $230,000, $240,000, $250,000, $280,000, like, because they have had the fortune. They built up the relationship to get it, right? Yeah. I mean, so the thing is, if you're on the list to buy that car, you're instantly going to make it. So, it's how the rich get richer, right? It's all, the opportunity is there. Yeah. So, and that works with a lot of the high end cars as well. If you're on a list to buy it, like you've obviously done things to get on that list. Yes. You don't just become rich by not doing great things. But so people who they just keep trading up, right? You get the next one, and maybe the next one retails at $200, but it sells for $300, and done. You just made $100,000, like.
Because the reason that it goes up for you is because not everybody's on that list, right? Exactly. So that's what you're saying.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And because of that, you can take that car, which drops in value for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But because not everybody's on it.
If you're the first guy to buy it, you're making money.
Yeah.
Because they don't make that. It's supply and demand, right? Yes. Supply and demand, and they own. I think the local Porsche dealership here, when a newer one comes out, they don't even know if they're going to get one. They might get 2 allocations for that car, and they've got 20 guys in the dealership who they've got to call, who are ranked 1 to 20 that they've got to call. They call the first guy, he says no. All right, next guy's someone's going to buy it.
Yeah.
And then that guy instantly, if he turns around and sells it, which that's kind of the hard part, is if you might ruin your relationship with the dealership if you turn around and sell it, because they want to sell it to someone who's going to drive it.
Gotcha.
Right? They don't want to, because also the dealership is in the business of making money. So sometimes they buy the car back. So the dealership might say, hey, this one retails at $200,000. We'll sell it to you for $200,000. You sell it back to us for $225,000, and then we'll go sell it for $250,000.
Wow.
Right? It's
crazy.
It's a minefield.
That is crazy.
But yeah, so driving you definitely feel very cool driving a car like that, for sure. Even if you don't own it.
Yeah, for sure. So I gotta ask, Tesla.
Yeah.
Have you driven one?
I haven't. No.
You haven't driven a Tesla?
No. I don't know. I kind of because I'm like a car guy. I've just love the noise and passion of driving. I kind of just don't.
You don't want no quiet. I don't want no quiet car. It's not even a car.
And I understand speed and I get it that they're all quick, right? But the thing for me is I love the thing about that Porsche is it sounds incredible.
Yeah.
And it even sounds great doing 20 mile an hour down the road.
Yeah.
I am a car guy because of sound and the interaction, not this is an appliance. It goes quick and that's it. Because that's what that's what Tesla is.
That's what Tesla is? Right? That's what that is? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they're faster than anything out there, but I don't know.
Yeah. That's funny. All right. Going back to the podcast versus Instagram. So you've grown the Instagram to a certain number, which is way bigger than the average person, right?
Definitely.
And then the podcast, you've now been able to do that to
slowly, yeah.
Yep, slowly. Both of them, a lot of it's back to that longevity, keep doing it, showing up every day.
Yeah.
Which one, I know the answer to this, but just kind of talk us through which one is harder and why.
Which one is harder?
To grow.
I think the podcast is harder to grow, right? Because someone, it's easy for someone to just hit follow, right, on a social media platform. Follow Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, TikTok, Twitter, whatever it is. Once, if you get someone once, they see a post, they love it, they're going to hit follow straight away, right? Mm-hmm. With the podcast, they might get referred to it from a guest that's been on. They might just listen to that one guest that because they know that guest, but they might not necessarily be inclined to follow and listen to the whole thing. So I find it definitely harder to grow a podcast than I have grow the Instagram.
Yeah.
And then also with the Instagram, it's such a, I could post 10 posts a day on my Instagram and no one's going to care, because they just want more content. Mm-hmm. You post 10 on Instagram. Yeah, right? Because not everyone sees it.
Yeah.
But also you could post one and post every single hour for 12 hours a day. And people will be like, oh, yeah, great photo, great reel. Cool.
Yeah.
Give me more. Give me more of that dopamine hit, right?
Uh-huh.
Whereas with a podcast, because it's longer, sometimes I think, what if I only just posted one episode a week, right? And then just marketed that for 7 days. But then I'd have to do half the amount of podcasts and I'd only meet half the amount of people. And I enjoy doing 2 a week, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting for sure. But yeah, growing a podcast is a lot harder, I think, than
what is your schedule in order to do 2 a week? What does that look like as far as the recording goes and scheduling that? Or is that you're doing, what is that, 2, 4, 6, 8 a month? Mm-hmm. Are you doing 16 in September and posting for October and September?
I generally probably stay 2 to 3 weeks ahead.
Okay.
Right. In October, I just kind of went nuts and recorded a lot of episodes in October, to the point where I had, 10 to 15 episodes in the bank. So I think by the end of October, I had already had November and December were scheduled and ready to go, which is great. Yeah. Because then I get to take that time off and enjoy it and build and, kind of have an end of year review, whatever you want to call it. But throughout the year, generally, I just see whenever. The good thing about only posting 2 a week, and I say that because I'm now at a stage where it's not 2 a week is very comfortable, right? I don't do much else, right? I don't have, a 9 to 5 that I work. Not yet. I might have one coming up, but that's a different conversation. But I don't have, I'm generally still in real estate, right? So I have an open schedule. So it's mostly on the guest. If I say to the guest, hey, pick a day in the next 3 weeks and we'll record.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's Monday. Sometimes it's in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then we'll just figure it out.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm not, the good thing about, it's harder, I think, when you video, right? Like, because that's more editing, right?
Yeah.
If it's just audio, you could record now and not put it up in an hour. It doesn't matter. Over the phone, we don't have to get together. It's straight over the phone.
Yeah.
But with video, that's where I think it's harder to schedule.
Yeah.
But then, because the good thing is, I think because I have so many in the bank, right? I'm not thinking, oh no, I have to record it. I have to get an episode out this week. I'm 3-4 weeks. Now I'm, what were we, I'm 4 or 5 weeks ahead now.
Yeah.
So, and then it just depends on which episodes I've recorded that are time sensitive that I can need to slot in and push people back. And I recorded 2 episodes last week with the Chickasaw Country folks down there talking about, we did 2 episodes. We did one on the 10 things you need to know about Chickasaw Country, or the 10 things you might not have known. And then we did one on, here are the places that all the influencers will go to, great spots for food, great photo opportunities, great days out. And both of those episodes were 30, 35 minutes each. We recorded those back to back. But those episodes will go out 2 weeks apart, right? Which is great for me.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, I think being comfortable and being, kind of a bit on a schedule is I don't have days where I'm like, okay, today I'm going to, I record every Wednesday. I don't have that. I'm fortunate that I don't have to do that.
Yeah. Do you have days that you post? Like,
yeah.
Are you Tuesday, Thursday,
Tuesdays and Fridays?
Tuesdays and Fridays. Okay.
Yeah.
Why did you pick those days?
To give me an extra day off after the weekend, because I did do Monday and Thursdays, and then I missed a couple of Mondays. And I was like, let's just do Tuesday, Fridays.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it's not. And then, but when I did 3, I did Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. I think I did 3 a week, because the one in the middle was a lot shorter. It was like a 20, 30-minute episode.
Gotcha.
Whereas the other ones were full. But now, just 2, proper long form episodes a week, Tuesdays, and then I put them out. I think they go out at like 2 or 3 a.m. just so that they're already downloaded by the time somebody gets out of bed.
Oh, gotcha.
Right? Because the last thing, it depends on if somebody gets up at 5 a.m. and they want to look at the most recent podcast to go to the gym, then I don't want to be that guy who gets up at, 6, 7 and posts by 8 o'clock. It needs to be out, that day as early as possible.
Are you, so you download it, you prep it, do everything, and then you just schedule it for it to actually go live at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning? Yeah. Does it matter video versus audio? Like, do you think,
I don't think so.
Audio helps you? I mean, video helps your audio part of it, or?
I think video is just the only thing I have video is to just to to use video to push people to listen to the full audio, right? Use it as marketing, and then if you look at my YouTube channel, every video, I take a video, the whole podcast, the full episode goes up on YouTube, and then I take minimum of 3 clips. And those will go up as clips as well. They don't get that many views, right? The Reels do on Instagram, because that's what's pushing people. The YouTube's just up there just so people can share and post, and if they want to look at, they can, and no big deal. But it's more. I use the YouTube as like a bank, right? Yeah. It's like, hey, this is a place to save all my videos. Yeah. But I will say this: I have had. So I checked the other day. I think I posted just over 1,000 videos, right? One long form and then 3 clips from each podcast. And I have a total, I think, of 213,000 views over, which isn't a lot, right? Over 1,000, it's nothing. 110,000 of that total number is one episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I interviewed.
Was that the?
I interviewed Darcy Lynn.
Yes.
And the full episode of that has over 100,000 views.
Yeah.
Right. So proof it only takes one. Yeah. Just takes one episode.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
Yeah, it's
your subscribers though have kind of grown. I mean, you don't have a gigantic number of subscribers on YouTube,
850. I think it slowly grows every day. Yeah.
So,
well, what's interesting with the YouTube side of things is last year, because I was still I'm doing real estate. I thought to myself, why is nobody doing like video home tours of luxury houses, right? Like you see in LA or you see in New York, people doing like, check out this, $40 million mansion. No one was doing that in Oklahoma. So a buddy of mine got together and we did 15 videos all over the state, just like a crib style walking through the house.
Yeah.
Posted on a separate YouTube channel. That 15 videos has 40,000 views total. So
wow.
I'm like, okay, there's a market for that. So that's coming back.
Yeah.
So the extent of my real estate marketing is just YouTube videos.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. But
how do y'all get in those homes? Is it because you're a realtor?
No, I just started sending DMs to people. It's the same way I get guests, right? The Instagram's the greatest tool ever.
Yeah.
Send DMs, or then I would look at whoever listing the house and just call them up and say, hey. And it wasn't, it's not easy to get. It helps that I'm a real estate agent, right? But also, when I say, hey, it didn't cost you anything. We're just going to come out and shoot a video at the house. Like, if anything, it's going to help you because it's more marketing for this $4 million house you're trying to sell. Yeah.
Which is not an easy.
No, and like the average, I think the average time, the average days on market for a luxury home is significantly longer, obviously, than your average home, right? Yeah. So anything they can do to help make their homeowner feel good. So one to two of those videos did pretty well. Yeah. I think 3 of them are like almost over 10K. Yeah. Out of 15, right? So it's just a numbers game. Yeah. But
for sure. And those houses are beautiful.
Oh, they're amazing.
Yeah. Let's talk about going into 2023. Yeah. Starting a podcast. Mm-hmm. What are some things that people should be considering if they want to start a podcast going into 2023?
Yeah. I think first thing they've got to figure out if they really want to do it, right? Because consistency, I kind of made this mistake early on. I launched my podcast and then I launched my golf one and a car one straight away, and I didn't have the consistency. And I made the mistake with the car one of having a co-host, and just having to try and get 2 of you together was painful, right? So, and then the other on the golf side of things, it was 4 of us, and trying to get 4 people together was a nightmare. So they just slowly kind of phased out. Yeah. So I would say the main thing is if it's going to be you and a friend, or you and a co-host, or just you and a guest, it's easier to just have you and guests because they're just easier to schedule guests, right? Unless you can nail down, say, hey, me and my co-host or me and my friend, we're going to do a podcast. We're going to record every Sunday night, post on a Monday. You have to stick to that schedule. So consistency is number 1, the most important thing you can think of. Don't worry about technology. Don't worry about cameras and equipment and stuff. You can download Anchor.fm, the app, right? You can record from your phone and post from your phone. It's the easiest way to start. But I would start there. Start with using your phone. Be consistent. Figure out what days you're going to record on, and then what days you're going to upload on, and then prepare for that episode, right? What's your topic? What are you going to talk about? Figure out what you're passionate about. I love golf and cars, so I have a podcast about golf and I have one about cars. If you love reading, if you're in a book club, if you're a big Life Church fan, you're a big Craig Rochelle fan, and you just want to listen to his sermons or his chats on a Sunday and then break them down Sunday night and post them on a Monday. Like, whatever it is, just figure it out, write it down, get it clear, and go, deep dive into that topic. And I think you probably found this too, it benefits you the more niche your subject is, right? Because there's a million golf podcasts out there, there's a million talk shows out there, or sports or whatever. But if you're like, I'm going to talk about the first Harry Potter book for a year, we'll go page by page and really dive into it, then there's going to be an audience for that. Yeah. So I would, consistency, it all comes back to is just really figuring out what day am I recording, what day am I uploading.
Gotcha. What's the second one?
The second one I have is being able to get to people, right? Being able to connect with like-minded people, or people who are successful, and people who are business owners. And we all get you as a pastor in the business of taking people to coffee, right? Like let's go to lunch, let's go to coffee, which is nice. But these people who have run companies, they're high six-figure earners, or they've sold books, they're successful at whatever industry they're in. They don't have time to go for a coffee or a lunch. But everyone likes to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
So if you want to invite people on your podcast, and look, they're not going to say yes straight away. I send DMs to people every day, and I don't get responses. These people have played. There's a guy I'm trying to get on the podcast right now. He grew up in Del City, Midwest City area. He played for the Phillies in the World Series this year.
Okay.
I want to have him on the podcast, right? Just send him a DM this morning. Hey, dude, just chat. Are you back in time for Christmas? And we'll see. Like I had, do you know who Ben Rector is, the musician?
Yeah.
So I DM'd with Ben a couple of times because his tour was coming. He's from Tulsa. His tour was coming to Oklahoma City. Hey, if you're in town, he's a big golfer as well. If you want to play golf, I'd love to play golf. But if not, let's record. And he just doesn't have time for it. All right, let's figure it out when your tour is done. So just keep following up. So the good thing is that by reaching out to these people, they want to talk to you. They want to be on your podcast, right? Yeah. They want to talk about themselves. They want to market something, especially if it's like Ben, he's a musician. He's got a tour coming up. He's got to do something about it.
Yeah.
And the good thing is as well is no one really knows how well your podcast does.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You could have 10 downloads a month. But if you put it out there that this is the podcast,
yes.
No one asks you. Have you ever been asked by a guest how many? No, nobody asks you, right? But if you've taken the time to ask them and invite them to come tell their story, game changer.
Yeah.
I interviewed David Griffin recently, who that one hasn't gone out yet, but he owns Griffin Media, who just moved into the new building downtown. Yeah. They own News 9, News 6 in Tulsa. I mean, a massive, someone I look up to in the media industry, right? Like, this guy has done it. He's 2 media stations. He's just donated the old one to Langston.
Yeah.
This guy doesn't have time to sit with me for a coffee, but he gave me an hour of his time to be on a podcast and tell me how he started. So I interviewed Larry Nichols the other day as well. Larry Nichols, him and his dad started Devon Energy. So, you're talking to the guy who built the Devon Tower. Why did you build the Devon Tower? And his response cracked me up because he said it was cheaper to build one big one than it was to build two. two average size.
Yeah.
It's no brainer. Oh, yeah, of course. So you just build this man. He's, anyway. So, yeah, that's the second thing is you can get close and be able to build friendships with people who are very successful and have done things that you want to look up to, right? And that doesn't, for me, it's people in the state who've made an impact, but it doesn't have to always be that. And then depending on your genre, I have a friend of mine who has a podcast about cartoons and music, and it's called Tunes and Tunes, as in cartoons and tunes, right?
Yeah.
Harold. When I did the podcast with him, I walked into his studio and he's like, give me 5 minutes, I'm just finishing up. He's talking to some guy who's designed Hey Arnold, the kids cartoon, right? That everyone all so it's just, and podcast is just, I think, the easiest way to meet people that you look up to, for sure. Yeah. So that'd be the second thing. That's legit. Connecting with people.
What's the third thing?
Third thing I have is I think it gives you something to do. It's a hobby, right? It's a hobby that really brings you value because it's made me a better communicator, right? It's now a hobby that's made me money, which is great. But I think there's a lot of people who aren't into athletics, so they don't like sport very much. My wife, for example, right? My wife goes to work. She doesn't like sports. She likes our golden doodles. She comes home from work, cuddles with the dogs, right? And like most other women, she likes crime TV shows. So if she were to start a podcast, it would probably be about her love of crime TV and dogs.
Yeah.
Right? It's so easy to and people want to chat and talk about like-minded stuff with other people, right? So it would be so easy for her to build a community. But also have
you tried to get her to do that?
I'm slowly getting there. Yeah. I did tell her the other day. I said, you need to find yourself something to do. You need to find a hobby, right? And it wasn't hey, you need to find a hobby because you're boring. It was hey, you need to find a hobby because I want you to not have. I don't want the biggest thing, back to what you asked earlier, between Wales and the USA is when you live in Wales, you have so many more days off a year. Generally, just your company was you have this many days, and it's almost double basically what you get here as a base. We get a week here when you start a company, right? it's at least 2 or 3 weeks back home.
Yeah.
And maternity leave and all that stuff. So they work a lot less back home. So I told her, I was like, you need to figure out, like figure something out that you just like want to do. Like gives you like passion to do something, right? And I'm not, she's like, I'm not creative. Well, it doesn't matter. Like you love the dogs and you love, crime TV shows. You don't. You're good. You're good, right? Yeah. So I think, having the third thing obviously is like you're having a hobby, but that hobby serves you in so many ways because it's made me such a better communicator. I have better conversations with my family. I have better conversations with my friends. I can carry a conversation now when I meet somebody who I don't, when you get in the elevator and everyone's just kind of looking at the wall, right?
Yeah.
Like I will start a conveation. Yeah. Just because I know I can. Yeah. And I went on a trip with some buddies this summer. We're in an elevator, we're in Vegas because we were on a bachelor party. And it was funny because it was not the typical bachelor party goes to Vegas. It was a bunch of 30 plus dudes who went to the pool and literally like just hung out all day. Like we it was not what most of the wives would be like, oh my gosh, you're going to Vegas. Yeah. Total opposite. But we were in the elevator and the guy on has a Lakers hat. And I was like, hey, what do you think of Westbrook this year? Just trying to, and my buddy's just like, how that was so easy for you. Yeah. Well, yeah, because like he's gonna just say, oh yeah, I mean and this was in the summer, so they weren't hating on him at that point. It seems like now they don't like him. But yeah, we had a little conversation. Great, have a good day. See you later. And he gets out the elevator. It's made it so much easier to talk to people.
Oh, that's so true.
So that's one thing that comes back.
When you're thinking about it gives you something to do. It makes a great hobby, and it can lead to something even more. Right. And I love the way that you talk about your wife could potentially take a podcast and do it around dogs or do it around crime series or whatever the case may be. And there's a lot of people just kind of sitting around doing nothing. Mm-hmm. But going back to how easy it is to start one, just grabbing your phone and using Anchor, it made me think about, I'm teaching a podcast class here. Mm-hmm. I did one, and one of the things that I let them do was listen to my first podcast, which was over the phone using Anchor, and I still use Anchor now. And it was just really cool to be able to, and most of the people in the room think of this, like kind of where we're sitting at
full
now.
Setup,
full setup. It's no, really. And I was like, that, I think that podcast, if not, is in the top 5. Yeah. My most played podcast. And it was just on the phone. Right. So this stuff doesn't matter. So what's cool though is you can take something that you love to do and be able to have conversations with people, and you never know where that can go. So you got 3 things. We talked about being consistent, deciding on a day, deciding on when you're going to record, deciding on a day that you're going to upload. Yeah. 2, being able to connect with people. It's important, but you can use the podcast to be able to connect with people that you typically wouldn't have access to.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. And then the third thing, again, going back to this, it's a great hobby. It gives you something to do. Mm-hmm. You can use it to build a community around things that you love. And then you said you had a 4th thing. What would the 4th thing be? So the 4th thing, it's, you just mentioned it there. It's community, right? Mm-hmm. The 4th thing is it's just the community now that I have, and like the connections that I now have after doing 4 years of podcasting. Like when I came here in the States, I was known as Mike who played golf, right? Mm-hmm. Mike's the golfer. Mike plays golf. He's here to play golf. People now in Oklahoma City are like, oh, Mike does the podcast. Yeah. They have no idea I played college golf. Yeah. And then when they find out, they're like surprised. Like, are you any good? I was like, oh, and I'm kind of like, yeah, I was pretty good. Yeah. Like, I hate saying that, but I don't want to be like, no, I was okay. When they Google you and they're like, oh, you won conference championship, whatever it is. Yeah. So I say, I kind of like, and they're like, well, like, do you break par? I'm like, well, for the most part, yes. Like I generally shoot around, even, whatever. But back to like, everyone knows me as the guy from the podcast, right? So if somebody needs something, they usually ask me, hey, do you know this person? Who do you know that I need to connect with, right? The good thing about us doing podcasts, we like trade people, right? Like, who have you had on the podcast that I need to know, kind of thing, which is great. Yes. And we have other friends who do podcasts, so we do the same thing. Yeah. With. So the community here around podcasting, around meeting interesting people, and once, it's very referral based, right? Yeah. So if I give you someone's email who I've interviewed and I say, hey, and I make the introduction because they've met me and they trust me,
they're going to trust you, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I get a lot of my podcast guests, right?
Yeah.
It's either DMs on Instagram or it's referrals through friends.
Yeah.
And the community is just the greatest thing ever. And I know people bash on about community and it's a buzzword and whatever, but it's true.
It's true. Yeah. I was
Like,
about to say, yeah.
You know,
Call
people
it what
talk
it is,
about
but
it because it's true.
Yeah.
It works, you
Yeah.
know, and it's just, and it, forget the podcast, forget everything I've done with it. The friendships I now have, best thing ever.
Yeah.
Right? The people I now meet, you know, I can go out to dinner and you know, go see someone, and you know, because I've spent an hour of them, I've given them an hour to express themselves and tell their story. They're so kind of thankful and appreciating of that.
Yeah.
And you sit with someone, which is rare now in today's world, which is another byproduct of doing a podcast, is, you know, we're in a room. There's no one else here. It's just me and you.
Yeah.
Right? We're not on our phones. You know, we're not like texting anyone else or going on Instagram while someone's having a conversation. It's just us in a conversation.
Yeah.
That's rare. So the fact that we get to build a deeper relationship with each other by doing this and then put that out into the wider community, it only helps everybody else.
Yeah.
So yeah, community is just
That's
amazing,
really crazy
you
to
know?
think about.
Yeah, it's because of, you know, all the people that I've met because of you, right?
Yeah.
And all the people you've met because I've referred you something.
Yeah.
Like it's great. And like, you know, that you think of the people that, you know, I interviewed Jared, who owns Coda, right? CrossFit, like, and then that world opens up, and you know, we know a lot of the same people because he's a huge golfer.
Yeah.
You're just connecting the dots, and then you look back and like this community is literally like one step away from everyone knowing each other.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's not 6 degrees, it's 1 or 2 maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, communities. So
yeah, and that's like my mission as far as just, you know, building the brand Heady Media.
Yeah.
And our mission is just to build the community around podcasting.
Yeah.
You know, and we have different communities that we try to build under one network. And so, and it's because I see the value in community.
Yeah.
You know, like what you're talking about in the sense of like us being able to connect people to people, us connecting people to each other, and how we're able to now maybe walk in a room and it's just because of that podcast. People are like, were you able to do that? I'd be like, I interviewed him on my podcast.
How'd you know that person now he's on the podcast?
He's on the podcast.
No-brainer.
Yeah. I gave him an opportunity to share his story, which it's amazing regardless of how influential you think somebody is. Just giving them the opportunity to share their story and to maybe reach even more people, even if it's one person.
Yeah.
Because I always tell us, like, what if that one person is the president of the United States, or that one person is Larry Nichols, who now, because of you, met somebody and was able to invest in something, or you know, it's those crazy things like that I think what makes what we do and get the opportunity to do really fun.
First time we met was Creative Mornings.
Yeah. Yeah,
right? Which is coming back. Well, it is back.
It is back. No, I was about to say, it's not just coming back, it's back.
Are you going to speak for that? You should speak once.
No.
I mean, I know you greet, but that's your thing, but you need to speak.
Yeah. No, that's what the people, like, no, I'm just going to greet.
I saw Krista the other day. She's like, I want to have you come speak. I was like, I'd love to. It'd be great.
Yeah.
Like, just tell me when.
Because she's having part of it.
Yeah.
They reached out to me. I was like, that was my first time, like, probably saying no. And
oh, really?
I wanted to say yes so bad. But I was like, I just can't do it. I wouldn't be able to give him my
because David spoke, I think, at the last one.
Yeah, David skipped.
I missed that one. I was out of town.
Yeah, so that was really cool. Well, man, thank you so much. I just know that there's a lot of people who are really wanting to scratch that itch of starting a podcast, and they're sitting in the sidelines. Man, these are some great reasons why a person should in 2023 go ahead and make that decision to go ahead and start their podcast. And as you and I can attest to, it really adds value to not only your life but other people's lives. And man, what better thing to do than to add value, right? And so, how can people find you? Where should they look you up at?
I mean, at This Is Oklahoma on pretty much every platform. And then if you want to watch golf reels and me and my dogs, my personal Instagram is just Mike Hearne _ and my last name's Hearne. So Mike Hearne _ So yeah. Simple, but mostly at This Is Oklahoma to see beautiful Oklahoma stuff. But if you really want to watch me play golf and play with my dogs and drive cars, then Mike Hearne's the other one.
Mike Hearne. Ladies and gentlemen, hey, thank you again for hitting that play button for another episode of the Heady Coleman Podcast. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, go win.